Welcome once again to the Apparent Voice, our Tuesday show. I am your host, Bernita Bradley, and I'm just happy to have the guest that I'm going to have on today. But first, I just wanted to do a little bit of check-in and again, remind everybody that we have our shows on Tuesdays and Fridays from 4 to 4:45. No standing topic, but dealing with the topics that are going on in brown and black communities. Also, want you to know that 4 times a day, we have a daily show that's on the National Parent Union site. We have our NPU Live in English, and then we have another version that comes on in Spanish. We also has Day to Day, and that's with Carrie and Tim. And then we have, Day to Day with Christina Laster. And we also have our nightly show with Marisol. And so I would really love for you to check out those shows on a daily basis and just enjoy and find out some good news and just interact and find out what parents are doing day to day, and then end your night with some love from Marisol. So thank you again for joining me on the Apparent Voice. And my first guest, I have to just say he's a phenomenal person in the city of Detroit. Most people will recognize his face once you see him. His name is Yusef Shakur, and he goes by YBS. He's the one who founded Zone 8 in the city of Detroit, and he's done some great work, not just with community, but with community organizations, and showing them that if you're gonna connect our people, you need to connect right. And he's been a mentor of my son before, which was just like something like I didn't even know him, and I just asked him like, dude, I need somebody to just, kick it with my son sometime. And you did that, Yusef. So thank you. I've been in love with his work, and I'll let him go forward. He's come through some challenges and now holds a master's degree from U of M School of Social Work. And I'll let him talk a little bit more about what he's doing. Today's show is the Black Pandemic, by the way. So go ahead, Yusef.
Again, my name is Yusef Shakur. I reside in Detroit. What am I doing? Right now, I'm just trying to stay healthy like everybody else. Managing the anxiety, the fears. It's all real. It feels like our favorite zombie show has come to real life, right?
The apocalypse now,
yes,
right?
yes. But also within that, when you look at Black people and other oppressed communities, and what people are now deeming pre-existing conditions and whatnot, right? In particular, Detroit and across this country, where we're seeing where Black folks are suffering the most from this pandemic of COVID-19. And particularly in the city of Detroit, and some of the scholars, the white scholars, are now saying is a direct relationship to poverty. Well, we've had a mayor in this city who's for the last two elections have denied the existence of poverty, or played, I guess, poverty doesn't matter. And what this pandemic did has really prior to we coming on, you talked about a story, a narrative. It has shattered this narrative of Detroit as a comeback at the expense of Black people. And so you cannot talk about a better world or better Detroit or better America without those who are suffering the most. Democracy doesn't start with those who have the most, it starts with those who have the least. And how do we serve them? How do we uplift them? There's been a pandemic in Black and brown communities for multiple generations. And I'll identify some of them, in particular Black folks: mass incarceration, lack of resources, poverty, health issues. I mean, and none of these things are by accident. I mean, and then when you tie in a COVID-19, it upped the scales to a word that hasn't been used in a while: genocide, a genocide of other people.
Wow. Yeah, and that genocide is happening, right? It's becoming more and more relevant. I did a show the other week about the food in our community. Even we don't even have good quality grocery stores, right? Like everything we do has been a struggle. So you talked about the prison system. Talk a little bit more about that and how that is impacting, our systems right now. COVID is, running rapid there.
I mean, absolutely. And we're emphasizing the best way to deal with COVID is through what's called social distancing. On the outside within the community, social distancing is a joke. It's not as simple as 1, 2, 3 ABCs for Black folks, particularly
Mhm.
poor Black people who've been living a certain way, who've been in their own world. And then when you go inside the prisons, there's no real way for social distance to occur in there. One, when you had the bloom of prisons, which was expanding the population, they took prisons that normally function with single prisoners, made them double bunk. So most
Yes.
prisons are not single; they're double bunk. So you're always interacting with somebody. They're very controlled environment. So, but the unfortunate what we've seen, I mean, I believe it was at Lakeland Coldwater Prison here in Michigan. They said they tested all those guys up there, and over 50% of them had COVID-19. So,
Wow.
and then we have a governor who for whatever reason doesn't want to address or deal with that situation. I mean, for any disease to grow is in a very contained environment. That's what that is. So
And
why
it had to come from the outside because they've been in there, right? So where
exactly
it come from, right?
exactly
From food.
so as a result of me suffering because of someone else's inability or whatever, I have to suffer. I have to be put in a greater risk of dying.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we could think of ways to be radically of how to address it and help these men and women versus just leaving them in a death sentence.
Yeah. Yeah. So last week, the sheriff, Benny Napoleon, was on the NAACP, or week before last, on the NAACP call, and he made the comment, well, they're kind of better off than us. They have a hospital right in there. It's like they have a hospital in their home. And we don't have a hospital in our home. And I sat there, I was like, really? Like, dude, what hospital do they have? They have a little bitty unit that fixes boo-boos. It doesn't fix COVID, right? And so if you not, and hospitals are closing down, so you're not about to ship these prisoners to the proper place. So, and knowing that our prisons are full of Black men and Black women, predominantly, so that's genocide.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's pure ignorance for him to say something like that. Again, it's rooted in privilege. It's rooted in him upholding values that exploit and take advantage of people. I mean, the real is, again, you may have an infirmary inside every prison. You don't have equal access to that. I mean, there's so many bureaucracy, rules and regulations. Then the truth of the matter is, to your point, most of those doctors and the medical equipment they have are not equipped to deal with very serious issues.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I laugh. It's a joke. I mean, the best way to deal with that is to think outside the box and don't try to treat those guys in prison as what they are, human beings. And also, but why would you expect them to do that to them on the inside? They're not even doing it for their family members on the outside.
On the outside, right. So you've been passing out masks, going around the city passing out masks, and ain't no telling what else you've been passing out for families. But I know that's a big thing. Where you getting masks and what's driving you to do that, right? I mean, I can't even say what's driving you. Your heart for your people is, right?
I think that's a good question. I think fundamentally, like, sometimes we think we got to go to University of Michigan, or we got to go to Harvard, we got to go to Columbia, to acquire the desire to help people. No, it should come it should come intuitively out of you. We have more people that gave up, the more things will happen. You don't have to be from poverty to help somebody. You just got to give a damn. You have to be willing to go. And so it's, again, I didn't have to go read a book. As things are emerging, it's just being out and about. I mean, that's what's being a scientist is. Scientist is evaluating and figuring out how to create a design model to address the situation. It was like 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
I called somebody, hey man, we talking. He said, I know somebody got some masks, or I got some money, buy the mask. We bought them, and I'm just randomly seeing people. Hey, you need a mask, because they saying that's one of the mandatory things that you need. But for me, it shows a failure in leadership, where your leader, when your so-called mayors, your so-called city council, who again, none of them took a significant pay cut. You know, that they put off other people, so you still have a significant money. So why not go purchase masks to give out to people, or think of some other ways? You know, everybody's putting the emphasis on essential workers. I mean, everybody should be essential. I get it. There's going to be a pecking order.
Everybody is essential. Yeah.
I get it. I can respect the pecking order, but also don't forget about the other people. You know, the folks that, particularly in the neighborhoods, the people that's working in the Family Dollars, that's working in the Dollar Trees and et cetera. I mean, unfortunately, those are the places our people are shopping at on a regular basis. And so what we recently did, we still have some grant money that we needed to do. I mean, everybody's impacted by COVID. I mean, that's clear. And so what we've been able to do was shift some of our programming. We just got ordered 10,000 masks that we're going to be giving away for free. And that's been the interesting thing, being out here on the streets, like pulling on people, hey, you need a mask? And like, I ain't got no money. Why you trying to sell me something?
Yeah, they like, how much is it? Right. You like, no, it's free, here, take. Right. So tell us a little bit about Zone 8. And I'm gonna bring on Phoebe. Tell me a little bit about Zone 8 and what that's.
Zone 8 functions in two ways. It's my neighborhood, and the name Zone 8 comes out of the zip code 48208, and it was a nickname that the police gave us. Some people who are familiar with Detroit are from Detroit. Starchy and Hutch, the police that killed Malice Green, they used to
you froze up a little bit. Okay, there you go.
They used to patrol our neighborhood, and they gave us the nickname Zone 8. That nickname became the monarchy, and that we helped co-found a gang as a result. But fundamentally, Zone 8 is nothing my neighborhood. It's affinity that I have. It's like most neighborhoods that we all come from. It's struggle, it's challenging. I love it. And it's just trying to do my part to making it better, healing it, providing hope for my neighborhood.
Yeah. And you don't let nobody come in that neighborhood and do what they want to do unless they come through the people, right?
Absolutely. I think we all mandate that. I was just talking to somebody the other day. Like, there's different type of gatekeepers. You know, and gatekeepers can be good and bad. There's the bad gatekeepers, but I think that from a neighborhood standpoint, though, that's good in the sense of, the sense of protection. The ownership of in particular, like you were talking about earlier, like story. Like, the stories of our neighborhoods are exploited. Why? Because what a story ultimately does is it suffocates the narrative. Like, again, people pull Yusef out and talk about me, but forget about the neighborhood. No, let's talk about the narrative. The narrative is the neighborhood. The narrative is my mother. The narrative includes everybody, not just the story.
Yeah. So with that being said, I love, we were talking earlier with Phoebe. So I'll invite Phoebe on. Phoebes Davis, all the way from New Zealand. And she is a powerhouse that I had the opportunity to meet through Kettering Foundation. I was a resident fellow this past summer. I was actually the first American fellow ever selected for the Kettering Foundation in all the years that they've been around, since whenever they've been around. And through that fellowship, I've met my wonderful sister Phoebes, and I just really want to thank you for being on the show, Phoebes. And so Yusef was talking about his neighborhood and how he not controls, but keeps that protective heart barrier around his community. You can't just come in and do what you want to do. So tell us a little bit about New Zealand, what you do and what the people are doing there.
Oh, tēnā tātou katoko, Phoebes Davis ahau, he uri o Ngāpuhi. Just a big thank you, and I'm really honoured to be amongst you today. And I come from very humble beginnings and a humble community that has come from, we are a tribe, we are tribes people, and my role in the community is just to be just there to support them. I've got a background in education, working in Indigenous education curriculum, and it's my day job, but my night job is packing food baskets, food boxes to give out to our community during the day, our old people. We're semi-rural. I live in a community that's here in in a small area, but lots of our people live out in the country. They don't have vehicles, they don't have power. Our story is very similar to yours, and just listening to Yusef and talking about incarceration, talking about our narratives. You know, my narrative is here. We've got a waterfall. At this time of the year, we've got these little things called eels, and they're about the size, they're little baby eels, and they're about the size of my little finger. And at this time of the year, they go up the waterfall and they go out to the sea. They go against its side. So these tiny little baby eels join together and they go up the waterfall and they go out to sea. And they come back to that very river that they it describes my people. We are used to going against the tide. We use it to define ourselves. We don't take shit. And we're used to going against the tide because we've had to. That's what's kept us safe. That's what's kept us safe in the pandemic. We've said, this is our community. These are our people. We know what it takes to look after ourselves, to keep us safe. So we've closed down roads. We've put borders up. Yes, it's been an absolute, what's the word for it, you know, not an eye-opener, because we see this every day, all day, you know, and it's highlighted again and again, the brutality of inequality in our communities, to our Black people, to our Indigenous people, that's me, low socioeconomic, you know, all the things that Yusef talked about, you know, it happens here too. And we've just banded together as community members to say, we're going to take control. This is our story. This is our, remind ourselves of our narrative. We are like those little alvas. We go up against the tide and we take no shit and we make our decisions. We have to. We really have to.
You said something about the Spanish flu back.
Yes, in the 1980s, we had a Spanish flu. It came from the war. Our people came, they fought in a war which wasn't our war. You know, it was even that. It's just a sad history. Anyway, they came back and they brought the flu. And what happened was that our women were down in the city. They nursed them. They died. They came back in their coffin. And our tradition is to open our coffins and to greet our dead. And in doing so, that it opened it up to the pandemic. Thousands and thousands of our people died. So we know that history, and we were really aware of it when the pandemic hit, you know, happened across the world, and we just got together and formed our, you know, how we were going to do this, because we have a huge tradition about honouring the dead. So for them to come back, for us not to meet and do what we need in our ritual was huge. It's huge. We've just been allowed this week to have 10 people attend a funeral. Was nobody. You just buried them on your own. That goes against everything we are born and raised with. How are we going to do
your funerals are really serious.
Yeah, they are, and they're everything to us in a lot of ways. But you know, this one size fits all is what we've had. What works for white people is going to, you know, and we all know it doesn't. So we have, you know, we rallied over there, but we really got ourselves together and said, we need to organise ourselves the best way we can. And just people have come in off the street, just like Yusef said, you know, there are essential workers out there, but we are all essential to our communities. So, you know, I've worked in the education field. I've looked at, you know, because the online spaces, you know, is an online looking at auditing your virtual white space, because it's been a virtual white space. What does it look like as a virtual Indigenous Māori space? That's turned everything upside down.
Yeah, what does that look like for even the kids in your area that don't have power? Like they don't have
we don't. And we've, you
power,
know, we've got 17 in the household. We've got 10 in the household. No one's got a room on their own. It's you know, it's such a, coming from a white privilege, that you get your own little device in your own little room, and you know, you can have your lessons. This is not a reality. So our government was giving out, sending out laptops for everyone. You know, why didn't they do it before that? Why did it take? Why did it take?
It took a pandemic for you to apply some stuff for. You know, and it's like Yusef was saying about, you know, we have a mayor who kind of everybody sees Detroit, and you know, we were talking about this in Ohio. Everybody sees Detroit as the comeback city or the comeback state, right? Like, where did it go? We've been here. We've been here. This new gentrification is not making it come back for everybody. It's not making it a success for everybody. It's only making it a success for people who are, for mostly newcomers, right? And people who are in a certain region, not everybody. And so when you were talking about closing down your borders, talk a little bit more about that. Like you said, the Black people are the ones who closed down your city.
Yeah. We just said, look, we have to keep our people safe. We've got whole communities of lots of old people, and you know, they're the ones at most risk in our country. So people got together and they set it up. They got masks and all the stuff they needed to, and just blocked it. The white people have been incensed. You know, it's gone up to the government, to the prime minister, and you know, media, white media. The mainstream is like, you know, what do those people think we're doing? You know, and made it look really ugly. We've actually worked with the police, because the police, you know, lots of our Indigenous people are there. You know, it isn't unlawful. We are protecting our communities, and you know, we've sent people back because people have come up, and because where we are is it's a mecca for tourists. So people that have been traveling and have the pandemic and come in and bring it because they're the travelers. So we've sent them back, and it's like, how dare you? Who do you think you are? And we said,
like, I'm protecting my own people. That's who we are.
This is our land. This is who we are. And we will do this with or without permission, and we have. And it's been the thing. There are whole communities that don't have anyone with the COVID because they've done that. But you know, we've had to fight a whole lot of bureaucracy, and that's what often happens, in terms of inequities and those sorts of things. It's just that because it's something that hasn't come from them, and they haven't declared that we could do that, we're not allowed to. But we're beyond that now because we need to protect our people. So we've just gotten on with it.
So Yusef, that makes me think about the rallies we have in here, right? Like today they showed a thing, or was it yesterday? I don't know what time of day it is. They went and stormed the Capitol, and they got guns, all the white guys with the masks and guns and stuff. Like, dude, they are livid here about the shutdown.
Well, I mean, one of the good things about this, it helps us, it gives us more ammunition to break down things that we know, right? Unfortunately, and we have to relive it. And when I'm talking about what we know, what we live, is the complexity of white supremacy and its birth child of white privilege. We all know that if that was a group of white Black men, that was a group of indigenous men with masks. First of all, we wouldn't even be allowed in with masks. First and foremost. Let alone with a gun, AR-15. I mean, there's a picture that's floating around with the aggression of this white man in front of a police officer, right? I mean, white people fighting for freedom, it's religious. You know, indigenous people fighting for freedom, that's the Antichrist. You know, black people fighting for freedom, that's the Antichrist. I mean, it helps us to be crystal clear for those of us who are confused. But the problem with it is it's so overwhelming that it takes the air out of you. You know, to fight for your freedom, to fight for your liberation, to fight for your rights. Because you know, when you think you got over one hurdle, here's 10 more hurdles. But that's the commitment. That's part of the struggle. And when you don't have that, the traditions and the rituals to your struggle, you'll easily get defeated.
And what are some of those rituals? Forgive me, go ahead, Phoebe. What were you saying?
I was just going to say, yes, you know, I saw something, my friend put it up, and he says, you know, who would have thought a Black man like me going into a bank with a mask on and being able to get some money and this, you know?
Get some money and not get arrested, right?
Who would have thought? And
right. That is hilarious, right? I mean, I my daughter made a comment, and I can't remember what it was, but she was talking about all these Black boys riding in the car with masks on, and it was like, wow, just think, like a while ago that would have been a problem, you know?
Yeah.
And we could laugh about it, but we laughing about what makes us hurt, right? At the same time, because it's sad that that's a reality. So I did want to talk a little bit too about something that's been a hot topic in America, and I don't know if you guys do the census in New Zealand, but it's census time here, right, in the United States. Is it census time there?
Yes. Oh no, we have census, but we haven't had it for the last one. We had an earthquake, so we didn't have the census.
Okay,
But,
okay.
yeah.
So it's census time now here in United States. And what's your take on the census? Because I have my take, and I don't want to overpower nobody's about it. But what's yours, Yusef, about people doing it? Because we have people who are like, yay, nay. What's yours?
I mean, it's a catch-22. It's a slippery slope. How do we get? It's an opportunity to get resources. I think the problem is that the people who are in positions to lead these things continue to perpetuate the lack of trust. And I think people don't want to dive deep and understand why we don't trust government, why we don't trust these things that could help us. Because in reality, even if we sign up, we don't see the resource. And then what people say when people talk about it, you're just being negative. You're just being no. It's, my negative is for a reason. Honor it, and then help me come out of it. But don't try to shame me into something. There's two sides to it. So the short and sweet answer. I mean, I see it, I support it, but it's for the greater good.
Yeah. So my take on it. I honestly did not do it the last time it came around. I didn't. And because of that reason, I'm like, man, we're not going to benefit from it. But then I went on this journey of looking for my family. And I realized, are you one of the Detroit I-100, Yusef?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so we got a chance to get our DNA swipe for us to do DNA research. My family was heavy in foster care and all that kind of stuff through my mom. And we had no information about our family, none whatsoever. But going through the census is what has actually helped me find my family.
Wow.
Because medical records were not, when hospitals were closed, you couldn't get medical records, but some of those medical records are on the census. Okay. I mean, on the ancestry sites. Okay. But I have found my family now. Literally, only thing we had was my grandmother, Ollie Mae Williams' name. And we knew she was from Mobile, Alabama. We didn't have addresses, name of mother, nothing when my mother's mother died. Wow. And didn't know the father's name, anything, right? And so going through the census, I've been able to track my family back to 1819 so far of my mother's people. And that in and of itself has made me push the census, not about the income or anything, like just us finding our people.
So you was going to ask me a question about what are those traditions, what are those rituals? You just answered. That's it.
Yeah. Knowing your history, knowing your roots.
Yeah.
Right. And so I look at a lot of our young people right now who, if you ask them where their family come from, through this, I found so much. We have a school teacher we have a person in our family who was a glover who started one of the first schools in North Carolina.
Wow.
In 1925, I think it was, moved from Georgia to North Carolina, got there, and he was like, this don't make no sense. My kids are walking 10, 20 miles to school in all this crazy weather. We need a school in our neighborhood.
So
petition. Go ahead.
So not having that information, it makes you fight harder. It makes you want to
make me fight harder. And it make us see where we come from. Like if a people don't know where they come from and who they belong to, sometimes it's very hard to get where you are. And you can make up a person of who you are, right? But this fire behind it when you got those rituals, like you say, even y'all funerals, Phoebe, that's like a passing of the buck. That's a passing of the mantle to the next person when one of your elders pass, right? We've talked about some of y'all.
That's all about identity.
Some of y'all.
Who we are. Yep, absolutely. That's all about identity, who we are, who we come from, who we descend from. It's huge. But just talking about census, we have the same issues around census when it's census time in our country and people being very suspicious. So we've done a thing as a tribe and we've collected our own data and we call it sovereign data because a lot of the data that does get used in that, how many have got diabetes and that, it actually works against us a lot of the time, how bad and how how unhealthy we are, and it's all your fault sort of thing. And you know, we know there are some of the data is used to get more resources, and then it gets lost down the chain, and the people that need those resources actually don't get them. You know, people higher up get the money and get all of that sort of stuff. But so we've got a thing around sovereign data, and we decide what data will be given over, and only if it's going to bring that resources to the people that it needs to get to. So we've been really clear and really worked hard to do that. It's been a long slog, just like anything we do, but you know, you just got to keep at it, because it's about what makes a difference for your people. And if we don't, well, who does?
Who will, right? Yeah, we have a thing here, and they're telling us, they're telling people, well, you don't even have to put names down. Like, don't just put number of people in household, how many boys, how many girls. And I push back on that because that's what they did during the slave time, right? Yeah. They put down that it was a slave master's name in the house, and it had boy of color, girl of color. I don't want that to happen to our people again, that 70 years down the line, somebody's looking for their grandmother and they can't decide which block my grandmama lived on because, okay, it said that she lived here 5 years ago, but then all of a sudden, all I see is one person and boy of color. Well, who was boy of color? I want some names to my people, and I don't want our history to get lost again. I do the same thing about cursive writing. I tell people we need to teach our kids cursive writing because all of our history is embedded in cursive writing. If you don't know how to read cursive writing, you can't even read your own past, you know? So yeah. So anyway, I guess that's enough about the census. So if anybody want to think about doing the census, do it for that reason, for me. Just so that we have our past, we have our history, we have it noted. Don't go in there and just write down one boy, one girl. Write down some names so your family can find you and track you. And it's related to property and reparations. I feel like reparations, only way when it's ever passed, right? Only way you're gonna actually be able to claim is if you can claim where you come from, and that's a part of it. Yeah. So, any last words? Tell me a little bit about what you have coming up next, Yusef. And I know you just opened your house. Just opened it, but what's going on?
I mean, in this form of struggle, conditions always dictate the struggle. Conditions of serving people. I mean, at the end of the day, my biggest message to anybody: if you want to be a leader, be a servant. To be a servant is to understand the means of giving your all to people. That's true leadership, and understanding how conditions are impacting people. So what we everything that we was going to do, we threw out the window because the conditions have told us that we need to organize and do things different on the need to serving people. So getting the 10,000 masks that we about to get out to the people. Also, we're going to be buying or getting other essential things that we'll be distributing now, and also preparing for folks once this thing starts to die down. And then we got the school supply thing that we're going to be hitting people with as well.
Yeah. So how can people donate to that? So every year, Yusef hosts a school rally and back to school rally for kids. It is beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful events you could ever go to. They have everything from music, poetry, free gifts, backpacks full of stuff. Not just a backpack, but backpacks full of stuff. And I think last year, how many did you have? I know the first year I went, I think you had like 2,000 people. Yeah. So how many did you have last year?
Well, we always get a ton of people. We give away between 200 to 800 backpacks. It all varies and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. And so if you want to donate, if people want to donate, what do they need to do?
They can go to my website, www.yusefshakur.org, and at the top of this other page, there's a donate button. People can donate there.
Yeah. Please donate, you guys. It's a beautiful, and if we're permitted to host the event, I'm pretty sure he'll figure out a way to get those backpacks out. I'm willing to volunteer to help pass backpacks out and drive around the city if we have to. But if he hosts that event, make sure you go. It's beautiful. It's usually all day. And what's the name of the street on where you hosted at?
Oh, Fayette Park Street. I'm in Detroit, 1 block south of West Grand Boulevard, right down the street from Northwestern High School.
Yep. Yep. So Phoebes, tell us a little bit about what you have
Yeah,
next.
I'm really keen on flipping the narratives in terms of the virtual spaces that our kids are working in, and that because they're at home with their families, whānau we call them, that they're the first teacher. Because what's been taken back is like, the teacher is the font of all knowledge and you don't know nothing. And we're saying, actually, you know everything. And cooking with your kids, you know, that's big stuff. And just giving the power back to whānau, power back to families, saying, you know, you were the first teacher and you've got this, and we can support you to have this too. And supporting families in their homes, working with their kids and whatever that looks like. And yeah, and getting the stuff out there. There's also, if they're not got the digital stuff, there's also other packs
The
that they
internet
can
and all of that.
Yeah, we're seeing the inequities in there because the white mainstream schools got all this stuff and we got this stuff, you know, the side, you know. So, and they've dumbed them down. You just take what you get, you know, lower level of everything. So we just like, just leave that and they can just be for kids to just play around with. But here's the good stuff. You're cooking with them. You're sewing with them. You're talking with them. That's
Yeah.
priceless. That's education. That's real education.
And that's some lifelong skills.
Yes, that's right.
That's some
And
stuff
giving the
that's gonna last you through life. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not that educated teacher. And the last thing I just wanted to say was that there was a whole lot of things about, you know, schools are saying, you know, they need to get back into it because they need to get their qualifications because that gives them a job. I said, you know what? The people that have been holding up our country haven't got all the qualifications. They don't all have the degrees and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been, so, you know, we need to relook at what we think qualifications are too, you know. Oh,
Yeah, buddy. Yusef was saying that like you don't
yeah,
got to go to Harvard to be
yeah,
a
exactly.
passionate person to have knowledge and to
Yeah,
run an organization. You don't, I guarantee you.
yeah.
So thank you guys both for being
Yeah.
on the show. Thank you a million. I'm honored. I would love to invite you back one day soon. And if you have anything else that you would like to share on our National Parent Union, please send it to me. I would love to share it with people throughout the country. And an invite also to possibly be on one of our other shows. There's people, we have, I think, 7 shows that are on and a couple more that's coming on. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the privilege. Take care.
So I'd like to take the last few minutes just to really thank my viewers for participating in our shows, telling some harsh realities and wanting people to understand that the Black pandemic has been a thing. I'm big on telling our stories ourselves. That's why my show is called The Aparent Voice, because I am a parent who is a parent. Like, we are here. We are apparent. Our voices are apparent. It's very apparent when you go into the community and you see poverty. Quit assuming about poverty. Quit assuming that people in poverty don't want anything better. Quit assuming that the only thing people need in poverty is food or just technology or whatever. Ask the people who are going through it. Unless you boots on the ground with us or you willing to be a co-conspirator with us, we need you to take some seats back and actually help us get where we need to be, or just let us do it. And so I kudos to New Zealand, who has shut down their cities. Brown and Black people who are shutting down their cities themselves, saying we are going to protect our own people. Kudos to Yusef, who is going around passing out masks saying, if y'all won't do it, we're going to do it ourselves. And this is what I think we need. I think, again, this has highlighted some things that we already knew existed. And there's a whole lot of people on Zoom calls, and I appreciate the Zoom calls. I appreciate the meetings. I appreciate the brainstorming efforts of people who want to help people. But what I do want you to understand is that in your helping, make sure you bring community voice with you. I push back at tables all the time and I tell them, if you're talking about a people, you need to talk about them with them in the room and discuss the situation, discuss it with them. I'm even like that when it comes down to my friends. Like, I don't talk about my friends behind my friends' back unless it's something that I can say to your face. And I guarantee you, this is how it should be. We should come, let us reason together. Come, let us reason together. Let us talk together. Let us figure this out together. Or else, guess what? It's not going to work. And so I would like to tell everybody, have a beautiful weekend. Remember, your voice is one of the most powerful tools that you have. Remember the census. Please go on and take the census. If not for the other reasons, the financial reasons, I'm asking you to take the census so that you'll know who your family are. So that if there's some incident that happens 30, 40 years down the line, you can look back on a census and say, that's where my grandmother was, or that's where such and such lived. And I've been able to track my family literally for over almost 2 centuries now. And I have actually more names on there beyond 1818, but those names I'm not sure of, so I haven't even tagged them necessarily to my page. But I found my history, and finding that history, I'm finding out so much stuff. I'm talking to people. I've literally been able to connect to some of the people who are ancestors of my family, and it's like wonderful to even hear their stories. I swear. I thank you all. Thank you again. Thank you to National Parent Union for offering this platform for us, the many of us parent leaders across the country who are doing great work. And if you have any questions, if I did not address any now, I'll make sure I go back into the comments and I'll address those questions. Forgive me, I will eventually figure this out on how to answer questions while we're on Zoom. It's a little complicated, but because it's not the same thing as Facebook Live. But see you next time, and thank you for joining. If you have questions, leave them in the chat box. And please feel free to email me also at Bernita@npunion.org if you have any questions, or if you'd like to be on the show. That's Bernita, BERNITA, @npunion.org. And thank you. See you next time. See you Friday or Tuesday on The Apparent Voice.